It's Young and Strong, episode 4. Young and Strong, episode 4. Hello everyone. Hello, Ora, how you doing? Hope you're ready for tonight. Welcome. Nice to have you. It's episode 4 of Young and Strong. Hi Nee, how you doing? Nice to have you. Thumbs up. It's another lovely day. We thank God. It's another good day to have another lovely talk with our young people. Hello. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on the live. Thank you for coming to listen to what we've got to say, what we've got to discuss tonight about young people, young, strong people tonight. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to give people a couple of minutes and then I'm going to bring Ore on live. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about myself. Aunty, good evening. Nice to see you. I hope you are still liking my, Thank you for coming on live. Can you imagine, it's episode 4. We're doing the 4th one already. And this has just been a labor of love. It's been something that, had been in the works for quite a while. And honestly, the young people I've been talking to have just been so inspirational. Every time I talk to them, I'm just like, gosh, they're amazing. And we're in for another lovely time. Thank you, Aunty. I'm looking forward to yours. And every time, we come on live on Young and Strong and we talk to these wonderful young people, every time I get inspired, every time I know that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm just so grateful for all of them. Now, the foundation, Melissa, how are you doing? Now, like I'd always say at the beginning, the foundation for this is found in the book of 1 John chapter 2 verse 14b, which says, I speak to you young people because you are strong and the word of God abides in you and you have overcome the evil one. And I've always been somebody, hello, that's my sister Bobs, how now? Thank you so much for coming. And I've always believed very strongly in that scripture, especially by the fact that I've been privileged, I've been honored to work with and to talk to and to mentor young people. And so when God gave me this vision, and I remember, talking to Aunty about it, and it looked so like, will it ever happen? But look at us on number 4. And I believe very strongly in young people. And tonight we're going to be listening to another inspirational young person who's going to be talking to us about what it's like to be young. What are the challenges? What are the oops moments? What are the people they go to when they need something? What are the motivations they get? Where do they get the motivations from? So I'm not going to waste too much time tonight because I'd rather you heard his voice than mine. So, Ore, if you're ready, if you send me a request, I'm going to bring you on immediately. And we're just going to have our conversation tonight. So, Ore, whenever you're ready, we're just going to go on straight into what we're going to. Hello, Deji. Oh my gosh, that's one of my people from EAP. Hi, thank you so much for coming on. It's so good to see you. It's been quite a while. I hope you're really doing well. Okay, before now, I'm listening to 3 others while I'm waiting for Ore to send me his request. I've spoken to 3 young people in the course of about 6 weeks. This comes up every other week because honestly, I can't do this every week. But I've talked to a lady called Abby, I've talked to Tony, and I've talked to a gentleman called Ira. These are all young people, but really, 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 really awesome. Really, really awesome people. And they've me. They've always just inspired me. And tonight, I think I can see Mr. T. Hello, Mr. T. Nice to have you join us. This is him, Ore Emmanuel.
Oh, good evening, Aunty T.
Ore
How are you?
Emmanuel, how are you, son?
I thank God, Auntie. I thank God.
You
And
have
you and
to thank
Uncle.
God.
Yeah,
All right, it's good to see you. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
yes, it's been ages. I've been waiting till the day we can all just, gather in church and see one another. But
I'm
yeah,
back again.
I'm
I've
looking
known
forward
Ore
to
since he was 13, so but this is about him today.
it.
I'm not going to let you into a couple of things. So, Ore, please
Well,
tell me. Tell us a little
hmm,
bit about yourself, Ore. Tell us what you're doing, who
okay.
you are. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so my name's Emmanuel. I'm currently in the process of studying for a bachelor's degree in computer science. I'm in my second year, and just because of the whole COVID situation, I'm currently studying from home and trying to make the best of that situation. But yeah, apart from those things, I'm someone who's um, part of uh, part of KICC as my church, and then I'm also part of my church in Liverpool as well. So throughout this period, I just thank God for the community that I've been able to have around me, supporting me, my family, and just being able to, continue to be active in those roles during this period as well.
Excellent. Okay, all right, we're just going to dive into it. Well, I've known you, but this is not my
Okay.
story. This is yours. This is yours. What has it been
Mm,
like being a young person in the last couple of years as a Christian? I mean, I
mm,
know that there's been all kinds of challenges, but for you, what has it
yeah.
been like staying a Christian as a young man in these times?
Mm, mm. I
Hmm.
think one of the main things I usually say to people about growing up as a Christian, as a young person, who actually I made that decision for Christ quite early on when I was 7. So that was the first time I can remember making that decision to follow Christ. But it wasn't till secondary school that I really found my faith being challenged. It was a really big culture shock because I'd gone to all Christian, well, Roman Catholic primary school. At least we were hearing about Jesus, we were hearing about God, and all of a sudden I get to this all boys secondary school. I'm just another fish in the pond. There are like 1,600 students in the school. I'm just entering at the bottom of the school. So it was a real culture shock. It was a real culture shock seeing the behavior of people, seeing what people were up to in their free time. And I was kind of like, well, this isn't what I've been taught. This isn't what I know. And kind of dealing with that, I found it quite difficult. And then another aspect of it, because I went to a grammar school, at my primary school, I'd always been used to being okay. I was quite a popular guy in my primary school. I was hanging out with, the guys at school. I was probably, doing well in all my exams, doing very well academically. And then
Right.
I get to secondary school and I'm just like one in a million, you know,
Okay.
because we've
So you're
all
not
done
so
that 11.
popular anymore.
Yeah. And even when it came to academics, everybody passed their 11 plus. And now, the level of difficulty had moved up. And one of the major things I really, really struggled with was I started to realize my identity was so attached to how I performed, how I was able to do at school. My identity was so attached to the fact that, oh, Ore, you're meant to do well in school. um, get your GCSEs, finish A levels, get into the university of your choice, and all of that, from a early stage in secondary school, I found that adding to a lot of the pressures I was facing as well, and it led to all sorts of things. My parents started to notice I was getting a lot more quiet, a lot more reserved, and
Okay.
I started also struggling with addictions and developing bad habits, and all of that was kind of tied to the fact that I was being exposed to stuff I'd never come across before, and I used to think in primary school I can conquer the world, but as soon as I get to secondary school, I see, okay, is this what life is like, And I was trying to navigate that.
So where would you say the pressures were coming from? Was it from friends? Was it from maybe unconsciously parents who were like still
Mm,
expecting you to perform at that level? Was it just
yeah,
internal? So where do you think all these pressures were coming from?
yeah. I think the main areas of pressure, surprisingly, were myself and then my peers as well. That peer pressure, my parents had always, said, you want to do well at school. They'd always pushed me, like, this whole idea of, we used to live in London, us moving down to Kent. That was all because of the grammar schools. My parents set us up in a place where, okay, each and every one of you, you're going to go to a good primary school, you're going to do your 11 plus, you're going to get into grammar school, because that really mattered to them. And as a result, it really mattered to me as well. So they kind of imbibed that in me. But I guess where I got things wrong, or maybe, I guess, I guess my parents play into this to some degree, that, I was so focused on, okay, for me to be doing well in life, I have to be doing well in my education. For me to be, as in, for me to be at my best, if I'm not doing, like, it became the core of my identity almost. And as soon as that was taken away, I found, actually, there's something missing here. There's something missing here. And in the midst of this, I'm still going to church. I'm still, being part of, to some degree, children's church, and then moving into TNT. And I guess TNT, joining the youth ministry at our church, for those who don't know, that's called TNT, Teenagers for You Tomorrow. And yeah, that kind of started to help me process and get through this difficult period in my life. And then I think another thing I would say is, when it comes to friends, especially because some of the issues I was struggling with, I found myself, I ended up not having a phone for a while. I wasn't
Not
on all the
having what?
social, not having a phone for a while.
Okay, so were
So
the struggles tied to your phone? Already,
struggles with,
I've asked. I've
if
asked.
you clear it up. Yeah, so in terms of social
Let's talk
media,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, in terms of social media, so my friends were on Snapchat, they were on Facebook, they were on WhatsApp, all of that stuff. But because of a few mistakes I'd made with using my phone, like I overran the phone bill, so I got privileges taken away, understandably. But to some degree, it meant that I felt a bit left out. So when my friends were talking about stuff that had gone on social media outside of school, I wasn't in on any of that. So that was something I struggled with, and it got to a point where I was very paranoid. So I'd see a group of people congregating together, and I'd think, oh, they're talking about me, or someone didn't. When I looked at them, they looked somehow to me, and it just started playing on my mind and my emotions, and all of this added to the fact that I was already having doubts in myself, and I was using whatever people said to me, even if they didn't intend it for harm, I was using it as ammunition to beat myself up about,
Wow.
oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Yeah,
And do you think, I mean, that's really interesting because you go from somebody who's doing really well as a child, and
yeah,
then you go into another stage of life, which is secondary school, which is just,
yeah,
I mean, another move in education, and suddenly you're confronted with these big things, and all these things start playing on in your mind. So how do you think you overcame all that? Because now we're
yeah.
seeing, I mean, there's pressure from not being on social media, even when there's pressure when you're on social media, you know? And
Yeah,
then you've got peer pressure coming from trying to be in
people
on what they're
around.
doing and pressure from not being in on what they're doing. So we've got all this.
Yeah.
So how did you work your way through that? Because I'm sure you're not the only young person that goes through all these kinds of,
Oh yeah.
conflicting
Oh yeah.
pressures.
I mean, this is where, my faith really comes into things. And as I started to mention, TNT comes into things because, my parents mentioned, so I mentioned that my parents noticed me being a lot more reserved. Like,
Hmm.
I was the child who, when we were on a plane or in a public place, I'd be jumping all over the place, making noise, I'd be in people's faces, but all of a sudden I was withdrawing, I wasn't talking, I wasn't communicating. So, somehow, thankfully to the aunties and uncles in TNT, like, as I found that community where people embraced me, people encouraged me. People like Dr. George, who was our youth pastor, gave me opportunities to speak in front of other people, and being part of the drama team. All of those things helped to build my confidence. And
Okay.
that confidence was really the thing that I was missing. Not confidence in my ability or confidence in, oh, I'm doing well at school, blah, 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 but confidence in myself and having and finding my identity, because that was the main thing I struggled with. As I kept saying before, my identity was in my education. My identity was in how many friends I had around me at a particular point in time. My identity was in my popularity. So as soon as all those things were taken away, because I'd been holding on to them, that's where the struggle really came. So as soon as I began to actually build my faith, actually get to know what the Bible says about me in particular, that was one of the main things that really impacted me. And the specific verses I talk about all the time when it comes to this is the fact that I'm a child of God.
Right.
I'm loved by God. He's my father, and he's not my father because I did anything. It's almost this whole works grace conversation. In my
Okay.
mind, my identity was tied to my works rather than being tied to, okay, who God has created me to be individually and uniquely as a person. And so as I continued on that journey of discovering, actually, it's not about what you do, but it's about who God has called you and who He's called you to be. It's not until I got to that stage that I started to feel more comfortable in myself, to the point that even if I didn't have friends around me, it was okay. I was fine
Really?
because, yeah, I realized, I mean, this is something that's really helped me during lockdown as well, because if I hadn't learned it then, like, I'd be grappling with it a lot more now. That even in those times where I feel isolated, I became more aware of the presence of God and the fact that He's with me when I'm by myself, that I actually have the Holy Spirit dwelling on the inside of me. So when, friends aren't gravitating to me all the time, or when things aren't as busy as they should be, or even when things might not be going the way I want them to in my education, it's not because God has abandoned me. God is
Right.
still with me in those moments. And I had to realize that, it's not tied, your, it's not all tied to how well you perform. It's actually about love. It's actually about grace and relationship. So
Amazing.
yeah.
So would I be correct in saying you had to separate who you are from what you do?
Oh yeah. 100%. That's it. That's
Okay,
it.
because there's a lot of talk about you've got to be this and you've got to do that and you've got to
Oh
achieve
yeah.
this and you've got to do that. So do you
Oh yeah.
think there's a lot of push towards people achieving things rather than people becoming?
Oh man, man. This is something like I've been watching a couple sermons in the last month, and the thing is, most of us are working on the doing, right? But when you work on the becoming, it comes to you naturally. If this is who you are, what you
You
do will
do.
be a product of who you are.
You are.
You know,
Okay.
most of
Well,
us
I
are
knew
like, yeah, yeah. I could preach
I
all about that, but
all
yeah.
right, I knew you were gonna go deep on me. I knew you were gonna go deep on me. So, I mean, yours is an amazing story, and it's. I think a lot of times when we're talking, and young people, you come, I mean, from a Christian background, and even though you seem to have lost it a little bit somewhere, where you didn't get your
Mm,
act together, you still went back to your source, and you were still able to
mm,
tap into your source. Now, when you look at your contemporaries, you understand, I mean, there's some that are Christians, there's some that are not Christians. What
yeah,
do you think are the kind of challenges, and how do you think they usually deal with it? How do you think young
yeah.
people would normally just deal with their stuff?
Mm, mm. So again, we've touched on one of them. It's the doing, doing, doing. Like, especially in this lockdown period, people have been saying it over and over again. You have to come out of lockdown with your book, with your song, with your idea, with your this, with your that, because you need to do, right? But
Hmm.
I think a lot of us young people, we deal with that. I think Abby spoke about it particularly in the last episodes. It's internalizing stuff. We like to internalize stuff, and we don't usually want to talk to other people about it. I mean, there's certain things that, okay, with our friends, we'll discuss it. But when it really gets to us, when it's really affecting us, sometimes we'll keep quiet and we'll try and internalize it. There's some people who are much better at asking for help, and that's because they've built a support system around them. They have people they can really trust around them. But I think a lot of us young people are afraid of judgment. Judgment
Oh,
is a big thing. Yeah, and we're afraid, okay, if I say this person is gonna not look at me the same way, not love me the same way, and I can't voice this challenge that I'm having with them. And so I've kind of learned that obviously you're not going to be airing your business with everyone you meet on the street. But
of course.
as a young person, you need to find those people, right? Especially when it comes to things, Tony was saying it, there's certain things you won't tell your parents, until the very last second when things have gotten out of hand. But having those people who are aunties, uncles, and people that you look up to in your spheres that you can talk to about these things, and having peers you can trust as well. Like, there's so many bits of advice about the kinds of friends you have around you, but especially when it comes to if they're the sort of person who's gossiping about others to you, you know they're probably airing your business with somebody else. So you've got to have discernment in terms of the people that you place in your circle, and
Right.
that's one major, very major thing that I've had to work on. Yeah.
Okay. And I know this might be a weird question, but I'm going to ask anyway. How
Yeah.
do you think an older person, somebody called me as elderly, one of them, I said we're not elderly.
I
How
mean,
do you
no, this
think?
is one of the things I wanted to say, right? I don't know what it is with people who are older. Like, what's this stigma with age? We need to just get
I
rid of
have
it.
no problem with age. I'm cool with my age. I will declare it here now. But I'm like I said, it's not about really. I'm cool with my age.
anytime anytime we're saying, okay, you guys are older or this or that, as you're like, oh no, we want to be part of the young people, the
No,
in
no, no, no,
crowd.
no, 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 no. I don't want to be part of you guys. I mean, but I mean, I don't mind you calling me older, but don't call me elderly.
Okay.
I don't look anything like an
Okay.
OAP, do I? No, that's why I said no, no, elderly, older is
Uh,
good. I mean,
no,
give
no, me, I'm not. I'm not
me
saying elderly. Definitely not saying elderly. But
older is
all
not
I'm
bad.
saying is, all
We
I'm
don't want to be
saying
called
is,
exactly. We don't want to be called old. Just say
okay.
older. You see, even as Silver says, I look like your big sister.
No,
They said we
no,
look
no.
alike anyway.
I'm not saying no. I'm just speaking generally here, Auntie. See, I'm just speaking generally here. That
It's
we
good.
just need to get away from this thing of, oh, they're the older generation, they're this, they're that. I was talking to you before. I was saying all these people that talk about the older generation. As far as I'm concerned, if we're living on this earth, on this planet at the same time, we're part of the same generation. Fair enough, you might have gone through different experiences, but this whole idea of, oh, there's a divide between the older generation and the younger generation, I think it drives more division. Because if we're seeing it as, oh, we're part of one generation where, okay, yes, those who are older are mentoring those who are younger, that are contributing to those who are coming up. You know what? All these things, right? If we're working together across the age divide, we're actually able to make more progress, and people who are younger are able not to make the mistakes of their older counterparts. They're able to relate with them more. I mean, one of the things I haven't got to that I always say is that I actually find, and it's just an odd thing with me, that I gravitate towards those who are older than me. I just enjoy
Okay.
speaking to them. I just enjoy learning from them, hearing their experience. And I think it's something that a lot of young people would benefit from rather than isolating themselves and saying, oh, we're the younger generation, let's stay in our little box and let the older generation do their own thing. This is the reason why young people keep making the same mistakes that the older generation have already gone through, because they haven't had the exposure and seen, actually, I can relate to you on this level. We're always talking about, oh, what I can't relate to. But there's certain things, Auntie T, I know definitely in your experience, even as you've spoken to us young people in TNT, that we're able to relate to. We're able to say, okay, it's not the same culture and context necessarily, but there's certain keys, there's certain things you learn that actually I can apply when I'm going into whatever situation I'm facing. So
Right.
that's just my 2 cents on that.
No, that's. I mean, you got me there because I've never looked at it like that in the sense that we're all living in the same times, different experiences, different times when we encountered that time, but we're really living in the same times. And based on my experiences, I would approach it differently from the way you would approach it, just because I've
Yeah,
got a few more years, I mean, in my own port than you have. And so
mm,
we don't, rather than it being older and younger, let it be one
mm.
generation, different experiences, and let's feed off let's
Exactly.
feed off each other. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
even
I never thought that.
people the same age as me, even as you said, you face the problem, you approach it one way. In my
Yes.
generation, or in sorry, I'm using that term again, but
Don't
in
worry
my
about
age
it.
group,
It's just convenient.
yeah, age group, there are people who think so much differently from me, have such a different experience to me, even though we're the same age, even though we might have grown up in the same neighborhood. So it's just something there. Yeah.
I mean, that's a different mind. That's a paradigm for me, actually. I never saw it. I think because we've been cultured to think of the old and the younger, and I think it influences a lot of the things we do. And one thing that I would ask is, and I think you've kind of like answered it, but it'd be nice to say, so how would we, what would help us to be relatable? Because sometimes, I mean, quite a number of people have said, sometimes we come across as African mothers or African fathers or Caribbean parents or Caribbean, you know, and sometimes because we're now in a different culture and a different society. So how do we relate? What would help us to relate better to our young people, to our children, to our wards, to, you know, how would, for example, if I needed to relate to you, although I think we're not doing too badly, but what will help us? What would, because a lot of times people talk about there's a gap, and like you said, we're one generation, but how can we bridge it?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this before I came on, but I think, you know, we often say that respect is a two-way street. People like to use that quotation. But what I think is really the gap is communication. Communication is the gap. Like, if we're having conversations like this one, and we do it in that format where, okay, yes, there is respect, but both sides are able to receive just criticism, right? If we get in a space where adults are able to be vulnerable, okay, I made this mistake, right?
Okay.
A young person is now able to say, okay, this person isn't just after me. You know, this person is somebody who's willing to admit when they're wrong. And yeah, maybe there's something I might need to work on myself. I think that place of respect, it comes where there's an open dialogue. It comes where there's a two-way conversation, and both people are opening themselves up to receive what it is the other person has to say. Fair enough. If we can have a civil discussion about these things, right? Especially between parents and kids. I know firsthand, right? I've been on the end where it's not until afterwards I came back and I said, all right, you weren't justified in saying that at all, right? I had a recent experience where I said something, and it took me a while. Like, I said something, my mom came to me and she spoke to me about it afterwards, and it wasn't till she spoke to me and I heard what she was saying that I realized, okay, I'm really in the wrong here, and I had to go back and apologize. And it's because I understood what I'd done wrong, right? A lot of the times, parents, yes, they scold their children. They say, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Without explanation, right? That's the problem. One of the major problems is without explanation. Parents might say, we don't owe you an explanation. But I think that, especially when it comes to respect, children will respect you more when they know, okay, this is coming from a place of love. I think Ira talked about it the last time round, that when children know, or young people know, look, I'm not doing this because I hate you, or I'm not doing this because I just wanted to vent out my frustration. I'm doing this so that you avoid going down this road that I've already seen the end of, right?
Okay.
And when parents are open about their past experiences, I think that's very key. And another thing I thought about before I came on is I had this crazy idea, right? Maybe not so crazy, but an idea of, okay, I'm going through my teenage experience, my young adult experience, all of this stuff. If I start in a little notebook to make down notes of the things that I didn't like seeing as a young person when I was growing up, those things that I was like, oh, mom, you could have explained it to me this way, or or at least, when we're going through different experiences in life and we're facing all sorts of emotions, when we get older, we have a disconnect between our experience as a young person and our experience as we get older. But if we make notes of, okay, this is how I felt in this moment. This is what I was thinking in my mind at this moment. The idea behind it is when I'm facing my own children and I'm delivering that discipline or I'm giving them that encouragement or whatever it may be, I have some kind of idea of, okay, as a young person at this stage of their life, this is what maybe they might be going through in their mind. I'm not saying the experience is going to be exactly the same, but I'm thinking about what would I have liked my parent to do for me in this situation?
I
And just
see.
being able to identify with whoever it is I'm dealing with at whatever point in time.
That's interesting. Although I don't think I can get the notebook out now. I think that boat that boat has sailed.
I mean, boat has sailed, but even, stuff like this, Aunty T, this is the notebook. You get in the experiences of young people. This is the notebook. And having
Thank
those
you.
conversations with young people, that's how we understand. Okay. And, you know, young people aren't to always be on the talking end. We have to be humble. We have to grow. There are a lot of areas where I've had to realize, Ore, look, 5 years ago, you would have acted one way, but now you can see what your parents were talking about, you know? And
Because
it's
you're
something
older.
that, yeah, because I'm older. And it's something that, okay, at the time you're like, oh, I don't really, they're just saying it. They're just saying it. They're just saying it. But once you've had those deeper conversations with the young people where it's not just saying it, but saying it and giving me insight into the experience, right? Into the emotions that you are going through at that particular point in time. If you're
Mm.
making yourself vulnerable in that conversation, not to be what do you call it, manipulated or whatever by your children. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're opening yourself up in that conversation, I think it means that your children respect, okay, they're actually talking from a place of experience rather than just saying it because, oh, that's what they've been told or that's what they've heard. So,
This is really the notebook. And I think sometimes because we feel that you've got to come from a place of I know what I'm talking about, and
mm,
that you don't also want to be taken advantage of.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you
that's what I'm
sometimes
saying.
think if I come and I tell this young person, actually, I don't really know, are you still able to maintain that respect? There's
Mm,
that thing in our heads that you're supposed to be respected, you're supposed to know. I mean,
yeah,
how would a young person relate if your parent came to you or somebody respected came to you and said, in this situation, I don't know. I don't know
mm,
how to deal with it. Maybe that's some kind that maybe that's the vulnerability we need to be willing to accept
yeah,
and to
yeah. I
I
think,
don't know.
yeah, because even parents, I don't know, parents need help. Parents need help from other more experienced parents or their peers to have those conversations of, okay, yeah, I've had a child who's just gone to university, right? Talking to someone who's been through that already and being able to get more of an insight because I feel like sometimes parents, again, they always say, parenting doesn't come with a manual necessarily, right? But
Hmm.
having people around you, it's all about relating to people who've gone through the experience before and being able to tap into their wisdom. Yeah, there's pressure on parents to be, you know it all. I should know what I'm doing. But really, if you have those discussions with your peers and with other people older people in your community, I think you'll find yourself not having to struggle with as many things that you have to struggle with, because it's just like us. We don't have a manual on going through our adolescence or whatever. You're the best guide we have, but working on the experience that other parents have had is just so key, and it will save a lot of children and a lot of parents going through struggles at this time.
That's interesting. Do you think I should just organize a seminar and let you come and talk to parents and say, you guys go get some help?
Oh.
You guys go talk to each other and go get some help. So you can come and help us. That's amazing.
Wow.
It is true. It is true. Everybody needs help. None of us knows it all, and it will help. It will help us. It helps our children. It helps our peers. If we can compare experiences and be able to say, I know that one, but I don't know that one. What have you got to tell me? So let me ask you an interesting question. If you could talk to teenagers right now, because I know you've kind of moved out of that now, if you could say one thing to those younger than you now, what would you say? I know you have plenty already because I can see the wheels in your head turning. And you're like, should I say A, W, C, or D? And I know if we left this, you had so much to say, but if there was one counsel you would give to the teenagers, those coming, those, like you said, you've told me now we're all one generation. Okay, those you're I can call you older too, those that you've gone ahead of.
Yeah.
What would you, what is something you will tell them?
Oh yeah. I know what I want to say. I'm just thinking of the right way to put it. But how I would phrase it is, know yourself in God, right? Like, it's so key. That the Bible verse, Proverbs 23:7, is so key. As a man thinks, right, so is he, right? And the Bible again says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. I mean, most of the problems we have in our lives comes from not knowing who we are, right? And I think if you as a young person, you're going through struggles, you're going through all kinds of difficulties, I would encourage you to continue to read the Word of God, study the Word of God for what it says about you. Because as I was speaking about earlier, that was something that helped me through a time of immense difficulty where my identity was in so many other things apart from being in Christ. And once I started to ground my identity in Christ, a lot of these other issues, they became peripheral. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm there yet. I haven't arrived, and I'm still working on a lot of things in my life. But if you find yourself, right, and one of the key things I would say is not finding yourself in the group, not finding yourself in what the people say about you, but finding yourself in what God says about you and who He's created you uniquely to be. If you can do that and you can stand your ground in that, I think you're preparing yourself for a life where you can be all that God called you to be. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Aunty.
one word. So you've talked to the young people. What is one thing you would tell your peers?
I tell my peers,
Get a life. Oh, what would you tell you? Get over yourself and get a life. What would you tell your own peers, the people who are where you are at the moment?
Yeah. Again, it's a reflection on stuff we've spoken about already, and like, I don't know, identity is one of the key things for me. But really, don't do it, be it. Yeah, don't do it, be it. You have to be that person. You have to be that person in terms of, okay, you should be asking yourself who I want to be 10 years from now, not what I want to do 10 years from now. Because if you can build yourself up in your inner person, in whatever skills you're developing, whatever it may be, if you can be that person, right, the doing, the activities, it will naturally flow from being who you need to be. And, in terms of, I see so many things going around about, okay, there's this opportunity pushed in your face, that opportunity pushed in your face. And I've struggled with not knowing, oh, which one should I take? Which one shouldn't I take?
Yeah.
But if I know who I am, then I know, okay, this one isn't a right fit for me. It may be working for other people because that's who they are. But me, I'm just going to stay in my lane and I'm going to focus on who it is God has called me particularly to be. So that's what I say to my peers. Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing, what would you say to us? We're a little older than you. What would you say to? Give me some credit. Come on, I'm not going to say very old. What would you say to?
Yeah.
What would you say to Aunty and her contemporaries?
Yeah, I think one thing that goes unsaid a lot of the time is we love you and we need you, right? We would not be where we are today if it wasn't for you, right? If it wasn't for your leadership, for your mentoring, for the discipline that you've given us, Paul says, we don't like it when we're going through it, but we respect you a lot more when we come out the other end and we see the finished product, right? So all of you older people, right, we love you and we need you. And what I would say is keep doing what you're doing, right? And as we've talked about today, keep relating with your peers because it's so important. It's so important. We're all growing here. There's no pressure on you. I don't want you to feel the pressure that I need to have arrived, right? You are still in that growing process too. And as we continue to go, I trust that we're going to keep going from glory to glory. And, hopefully we'll continue to be making you proud as much as we possibly can. So we thank God. Yeah.
We've got to love Ore. I mean, guys, we've just got to love Ore. I mean, you couldn't have put it better. And really, 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 really grateful for everything you've said. Very encouraging. I mean, to every single strata you've spoken to. And for me, my take home from the things you've said, we're all one generation, different stages. That's amazing. Authenticity, identity, be who you are. Don't do it, be it. You see, I've got good memory, Wani. And most of all, because somebody said I show him. No, he's my son. Amazing wisdom, Ore, as always. Amazing. And thank you. And I know from all of us on the chat this evening, we wish you all the very best in life. We know you haven't seen your best days yet, and God will take you from glory to glory, increase to increase on every side, and you will be all you're supposed to be and do all you're supposed to do. Thank you so much for honoring my invitation. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so
thank you
much,
for talking
for
to every single one of us. And thank you especially for helping us to feel needed. I mean, because sometimes we feel as if we've got to make ourselves that we've got a responsibility, and so we're doing it out of a sense of responsibility, but you've helped us to realize that what we're doing is actually appreciated, and I really, really appreciate you for it. Thank you so, so much. And T loves you from the bottom of her heart.
I love you.
You're my person. You're my person. Thank you so, so much for coming. And for all the others on the chat, I'm sure you've learned so much from my wonderful young man, Emmanuel. Ore has given me another idea, which I'm going to be talking to you about that panel thingy, by his grace, we're going to bring it to pass. But just to give everybody a heads up, on Sunday, we're finally starting our own Mom's Word. That one is coming up on Sunday, and we're going to be gisting with moms. So I'm going to have a phenomenal mom on Sunday for an hour, And we're going to talk. I've been talking to young people, and we'll continue to do our every 2 weeks with young people. But once a month on Sunday, I'm going to be talking to moms. Let's talk about moms as well. Let's hear what moms have to say. So that's all we've got time for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. That's my sis Betty, Oti, Afuna, Patience, Tokubo Joe. I see so many people on there. Thank you, everyone. My sister Boppo, all the way from Canada, Kemi, all the way from Indianapolis. There'll be so many people listening to you already. You're a superstar.
Wow.
And of course, wonderful Oti, always there. Deji, everybody, thank you for coming. We've learned so much. I'm going to save this live. So encourage young people to come and listen to it, to come and learn. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks. But remember, Sunday, I'm going to be posting it. I'm going to be having a phenomenal mom just to talk to us about mom's sides of the story. So thanks, Ore. God bless you. Continue to be who you are in God. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. And God bless us all. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.